1.4 MPI 100 horsepower G4 LC. The Kia Rio X line was sold with 1.4 and 1.6-liter engines. The younger engine from the Kappa family was chosen much less frequently than the 1.6-liter. This naturally aspirated engine has a timing chain drive, 2,432,103,101 phase regulators on both camshafts, hydraulic compensators in the valve drive, distributed injection and an intake manifold with variable geometry. This engine also has oil nozzles, 2,115,004,550, for irrigating the pistons. Its reliability is in perfect order, but operation on 92-octane gasoline often ends in the destruction of the exhaust gas converter. Its ceramic dust can get into the cylinders and cause scoring on their surface. 1.6 MPI 123 horsepower G4 FA. Most Rio X lines were sold with a 1.6-liter naturally aspirated engine. This motor of the Gamma 2 family has been produced since 2010 and has proven itself well. Its timing drive is also driven by a chain, 2432212B000, and there are phase shifters on both camshafts. This engine does not have hydraulic compensators or oil nozzles. As practice shows, these engines last more than 500,000 kilometers. Taxi drivers won't let you lie. All that can threaten their health is the destruction of the converter due to low-quality fuel and poor maintenance. If you change the oil at least every 10,000 kilometers, the G4 FA engine will last a long time. M6CF1 6-speed manual transmission. The Rio X line is also doing well with transmissions. 6-Street A manual transmission will serve more than 500,000 kilometers without any problems if you update its gear oil, SAE 70 watts/85 or SAE 75 watts/85, API GL4, every 80,000 kilometers and change the input shaft oil seal, which sometimes leaks in time. Very rarely, the rear bearing 4322526A0 of the input shaft wears out, as evidenced by noise and even crackling noise from the transmission during acceleration. A6GF1 6-Street automatic transmission. The automatic transmission of the Rio X line is also reliable and easily lasts more than 400,000 kilometers. This unit is designated A6GF1. To maintain it in good condition, you need to perform a partial oil change every 50,000 kilometers. For this, ATF SB4 is used. It takes about 4 liters of this fluid to update. The filter does not change, because you can get to it only if you open the automatic transmission housing. The Rio X line chassis is reliable, durable and has no obvious weak points. The steering rack is electrically power assisted and doesn't cause any trouble. Sometimes there are cases of light and barely audible tapping of the rack when changing the direction of rotation of the steering wheel in positions close to the extremes. In this case, inspect the tightness of the tie rod boot clamps, 56527C8000. Due to a loose fit, these clamps and boots placed on the rail can slide and tap. The Kia Rio X line, as well as the Rio sedan and their Accent/Solaris sibling, have experienced swelling of the brake hoses near the fittings. Typically near the top fittings, i.e. next to the hose fastening to the support on the body. Bloating is the formation of a so-called hernia, which indicates the destruction of the reinforcing threads in the hose. Typically, this problem occurred on cars produced in 2017 to 2020 with a mileage of 20,000 to 50,000 kilometers. Of course, dealers replace the brake hoses under warranty. New original hoses for these cars today cost $40. And the choice of not originals is huge. The average price of substitutes is about $10. 58731H8000, 58732H8000, 58737H8000, 58738H8000. The front wheel bearings are not very durable. Sometimes they had to be changed already at the 120,000 kilometers mark. Wheel bearings cost up to $35. 51720H5000. Original stabilizer links cost up to $40. 54830M0000. And numerous replacements are on average 4 times cheaper. But the original struts last more than 60,000 kilometers. The ball joint 54530U000 of the front arm is sold and replaced separately. The original cost no more than $15. Both lever silent blocks are also sold separately. The rear washer 54584H5000 and front bushing 5455511J000 cost up to $10 and $6, respectively. The rear wheel hubs 52750F9100 last a long time, more than 300,000 kilometers, but the price of the original reaches $160. Analogs are 3 times cheaper. Silent blocks, 55160H8000, of the rear torsion beam are sold separately at a price of $10 to $25, but in general they are not in demand, since they last for 400,000 kilometers or more. The body metal of this generation Kia Rio is well protected from corrosion and well painted. However, there are exceptions. As usually happens, the roof panel easily blooms with saffron milk caps in places where the paint has been broken. By the way, you can place a rubber seal with a T-shaped profile in the gap between the windshield and the roof. The seal from Gazelle, 3,302 to 5,206,050, is ideal. It has been noticed that these Korean state employees, painted white, may have corrosion points right under the paint. It is believed that the technology of painting white was violated. But in general, dealers solve these problems under warranty. For example, the hoods were repainted at the expense of the manufacturer. It also happens that the bumper rubs the paint on the wings in places where there is too much contact between its plastic and metal. As a result, the paint at the junctions of the wings and the bumper was falling off in small fragments. These defects were also corrected under warranty. Sometimes owners note that the paint on door handles has rubbed down to the plastic, often behind the front mudguards behind the lockers, i.e. a lot of dirt collects behind the front fenders at their lowest point. Of course, everything depends on the cleanliness of the roads. But it happens that in winter this dirt becomes saturated with moisture, and then in cold weather this substance freezes and presses through the wing. In general, we recommend, if possible, removing the front mudguards and unfastening the lockers to clean these pockets behind the front wings. The headlights of these cars sometimes fog up. You can combat this with silica gel. One or more bags, depending on size, can be placed behind the inspection cover 92140F6000 in the headlight housing. They say that silica gel was even produced in branded bags with Hyundai/Kia logos. In recent years, restyled Kia Rios in style trim levels with LED DRLs have been increasingly frustrated by the burnout of these same DRLs, i.e. daylight lights. Here either one of the DRL beams stops shining, or first turns yellow and then goes out completely. Actually, the glow of DRLs, namely their light guides, tubes that distribute light, is provided by groups of LEDs that are located at the end of the tubes. In this case, the block with LEDs soldered on it is located at the top of the rear in the headlight housing. Today, specialized workshops offer repairs and replacement of burnt-out LEDs. True, for this you will have to open the headlight housing, i.e. unstick it to access the LED board. After about the 5th year of operation, the door opening limiters wear out. They simply stop locking the door in open positions. New front door stoppers, 7938OH0000, 7938OH0000, sell for $20, $25. The interior of the Kia Rio X line is of quite high quality and does not look dull. By the way, if there are no buttons on the right spoke to control the cruise control, then this drawback can be solved. You just need to buy a remote control with buttons, 96720H8620, it costs up to $70, and on Chinese marketplaces up to $40 and install it instead of the remote control without buttons. All instructions are available on the internet. Essentially, you need to remove the steering airbag. And then everything is much simpler. The new remote control is connected with a standard cable and works immediately. The steering wheel rim braid lasts about 150,000 kilometers, although sometimes it was replaced under warranty due to rubbing. There are also cases of clouding or abrasion of the silver on the lining on the lower spoke of the steering wheel. It can also be changed separately. A mileage well beyond 200,000 kilometers is indicated by wiping the side of the driver's seat. On a small number of Kia Rios, it was necessary to change the heater fan due to the appearance of a creaking noise when it was running. There are times when the driver's door does not open from the inside. The reason is quite simple. The cable from the inner handle to the lock breaks. This cable costs about $15, 81313H0000, and can be changed in just an hour. These cars sometimes experience flooding of the trunk button. Water gets into the button if a stream of water hits it accurately at a hand wash. Water harms the electronic board and causes corrosion. The button starts working on its own or stops working. It is better to immediately replace it with a new and improved one. 81260H2201, its electronic circuit is filled with a compound. It is no longer afraid of moisture. The original button, priced at about $65, is difficult to find on sale, but good replacements will also work. They cost about $25. The Kia Rio X line has a problem with the nuts that attach to the decorative trunk lid. But it all starts with the fact that the owners of these cars begin to hear rattling noises behind the trim of the trunk lid. Less often they notice the play of the spoiler itself, but the problem in fact is that the nuts that secure the spoiler simply unscrew. They are accessible after removing the plugs at the top of the trunk lid from the inside. The spoiler itself is secured with 5M6 nuts with a flange. We advise you not only to check the presence of these nuts, but to install them with thread sealant, because they unscrew quite easily,